Hey guys, it's Shelby, and I am back again. I'm literally only making these because I can put them on 2-speed on YouTube and just play them in my car again. Um, these are not made by me. These are made by my professors at Simpson University. I'm just a nursing student, so I'm going to give some input of what I learned. I'm going to read the information and give some input of what I learned, um, but it may not fully be of the standards of a teacher, I guess you could say. Let's get into it. Okay. So basically, stress and disease. We're all different. So stress impacts us in different ways. Oh, okay. Stress begins with a stimulus that the brain perceives as stressful. It triggers a survival response. When innate and adaptive responses are dysregulated, there are pathophysiological consequences. Um, so on the actual slide itself, it says that stress begins with a stimulus, promotes adaptive and survival related physiolo- physiologic responses, and these can become dysregulated and cause consequences. Um, moving on. So on this slide, it says Dr. Hans Seeley discovered a new sex hormone, and if it was injected into ovaries, it would cause enlargement of adrenal glands, atrophy of thymic and other lymphoid structures, um, bleeding ulcers in stomach and duodenal lining. What uh, Dr. Seeley witnessed these changes with many agents called stimuli stressors. Um, he viewed stress as a biological phenomenon, and again, so basically, enlargement of adrenal gland, atrophy of thymus and lymphoid, and development of ulcers in stomach and its lining. Um, these reactions occurred because of irritating stimuli and stressors such as cold, surgical injury, and restraint. So, the GAS, general adaptation stage, there's the alarm stage where the stressor triggers HPA axis. It activates the sympathetic nervous system. The resistance and adaptation stage, begins the action of adrenal hormones. And then exhaustion stage, if stress continues and adaptation is not successful. So, in the alarm stage, the central nervous system is aroused, and the body's defenses are immobilized, causing the initiation of the flight or fight response. Um, the resistance in adaptation stage involves the mobilization, which contributes to the fight or flight response, and the exhaustion stage is continuous stress that it causes progressive breakdown of compensatory mechanisms and homeostasis. If you are in the exhaustion stage for too long and adaptation is not successful, um, one can become immunocompromised, making them more susceptible to being sick, heart failure, maybe even kidney failure, with the potential of death. So talking about the alarm stage, um, this picture portrays the alarm reaction. The sites beginning this stage are the adrenal cortex, which are at the top of the kidney. So if we look at the adrenal gland right here, This is the outer white part is the cortex, and the inner pink part is the medulla. So in the adrenal medulla is part of the autonomic nervous system, so the ANS. When a individual comes in contact with a stressor, the adrenal cortex within the hypothalamus sends a message. Hypothalamus is in the brain up there, you see, sends a message to the adrenal medulla where glucocorticoids and the liver release glucose. The adrenal medulla increases epinephrine and norepinephrine, which results in a flight or fight response. Epinephrine and norepinephrine cause faster breathing, increased heart rate, and digestion slows down. So that's why we're not shitting ourselves when we're running from a lion. So just think, like, if a lion were to run at you, what would your body do? Your heart rate would go up, probably going to run, get all this energy to run, but it's not like, I think I need to go to the bathroom. Like, no, you're not going to be doing that. So I think your body just goes, okay, you could take a crap later. Once the stressor is encountered, there's a chemical reaction to that stressor, and the body adapts to the stressor or disturbance. Okay? Physiologic mediators. So gas response depends on physiological factors surrounding the stressors. There's reactive response, anticipatory response, and a conditional response. It was determined in the 1950s. Gas depends on physiologic. I'm just going to call it. It's I'm calling it physiological. It's psychological. Gosh, sorry guys. Psychological factors surrounding the stressor. Discomfort, feeling uncomfortable, unpleasant, feeling sensations or sudden onset of stress, presence or absence of stress responses may occur. A reactive response is when the physiologic response derived from a physiologic stressor. For instance, if you were to close your eyes and envision an exam, you would probably get increased heart rate. The anticipatory response, I need to take my gum out because I can't talk with it. Sorry. The anticipatory response develop in anticipation of the disruption of homeostasis. Anticipatory response can be generated by fears, memories. So, for example of this, I used to have, what's a really bad fear I had? Oh, okay. So I used to be scared of. I don't know what I'm scared of. Huh. But for instance, oh, okay. Here's a good one. I used to be scared of iguanas, at the pet store, and so anytime that like we would have to go to like Petco to get dog food or like a pet shop. Back in the day, they used to always have iguanas seen on top of the cage rather in their cage, and it would scare the bejesus out of me. I don't know why. I just do not like them. They're huge lizards. Um, but I associated the smell in pet stores with iguanas, so I would never want to go into a pet store. I was so scared that I'd run into an iguana. So like that's like and that right there is a anticipatory response, that if I walk into this pet store, there's a chance that I can come in contact with a iguana. So I would get nervous even just going into the pet store. With conditional response, a person learns that specific events are associated with danger. PTSD is a good one, and PTSD experience a stimuli stressor that associates with danger of an unpleasant experience. Anticipation of the event triggers a physiologic response. So, this is basically some who have PTSD. My dad worked with this one guy. He actually had delayed PTSD, but he said when he would hear the um, I think it's like an American flag song or something. The national anthem, he would start crying. Um, so he had PTSD because every time he would hear the national anthem, it would just, you know, make him cry. So that would be a sign of PTSD. He relates the national anthem back to when he was in the military and some traumatic things happened in the military for this man. So that's an example of PTSD. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Stress and illness. So evidence implicates stress as a precipitating factor for some diseases and conditions and worsening of symptoms and outcomes in others. Studies and health reports reveal that stress sometimes initiates some diseases and conditions and can exacerbate symptoms of underlying disease. There are some conditions listed on the right. In the 70s, it was determined experiencing prolonged life changes or emotions resulting from life changes are associated with decreased immune function. Um, um, Among social, psychologic, and biologic factors and their role in causing stress involves holistic and biochemical approach involving the central nervous system, autonomic nervous system, endocrine, and immune system. This complex relationship is called the HPA. Okay, HPA. So the HPA is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This sequence begins with the nervous system, which is the hypothalamus secretes CRH, cortico-releasing hormone, which goes down to the pituitary, stimulate the pituitary to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, and ACH then is transported through the blood to the adrenal glands. The cortical cord hormones such as cortisol are released and cause metabolic changes. Overall, these hormones are thought to enhance immunity during acute stress and suppress immunity during chronic stress because of prolonged exposure and increased concentrations. So, going over that hypothalamus, CRH, pituitary, ACTH, adrenal glands is glucocorticoids such as cortisol, which is released from the cortex. And this cortisol can influence immune factors. It can help in acute situations, but if prolonged, it can cause problems. The nervous system is CRH and ACTH. The endocrine system, the adrenals secrete cortisol and catecholamines. in the immune system is secondary to the cortisol and catecholamines. Okay? Okay. Neuroendocrine regulation. So on the right, you can see that antidiuretic hormone and adrenocorticotropic hormone increase the result of corticotropin releasing hormone being released on the posterior and anterior pituitary. Cortisol leads to a cascade of events that results in inflammation and immunosuppression. The sympathetic nervous system on the left shows a cascade that occurs in the result of released norepinephrine and epinephrine. Some events include increased blood pressure, heart rate, sweating. Like what you would get in the fight or flight. As a result of these events, blood sugar will increase. So the reason why we would have an increase in blood sugar um, is more in detail, and they're asking us to go back into the book. But basically, I'm pretty sure it enters the blood so we can have energy to burn off, so we can we could have energy to run from like a tiger or bear. That's just a guess. I'll have to go into that one more. Okay, our bodies are smart. And this picture reflects the effect of, I'm just going to call it CRH now. CRH on the cellular level. Adaptive immunity provides protection against multicellular and extracellular pathogens. Innate immunity provides protection against intercellular pathogens. HPA axis. The hypothalamus secretes CRH, the pituitary secretes ACTH. CRH also influences the immune system indirectly by the activation of cortisol and catecholamines, because we saw that cascade effect. Beyond the hypothalamus, CRH is secreted peripherally at inflammatory sites. CRH in these peripheral sites can increase vasodilation, vascular permeability. In this image, you see CRH targets mast cells. Mast cells release histamine. Histamine causes acute inflammation and allergic reaction while decreasing innate immunity and increasing adaptive immunity. So basically what I gathered from this is CRH is it can work on also mast cells, not only on the pituitary, but it can work on mast cells. And it can go to the inflamed site, vasodilate, cause vascular permeability to attack the pathogen that has invaded. And when it attaches to mast cells, it causes the release of histamine. This release of histamine decreases innate immunity and increases adaptive immunity. Okay? PNI, neuroimmunology. So psycho, consciousness, endocrine, brain, spinal cord, immune, modulation by psychological stressors leads to directly to health outcomes. So I'm going to call it PNI because there is no way I'm going to be able to say that over and over and over again. But is again, the PNI is the study of consciousness, brain and spinal cord, and body defenses against infection and abnormal cell division. This concept is controversial, but it focuses on mind and body for health as a holistic approach. PNI assumes that Immune-mediated diseases result from interrelationships among psychosocial, emotional, genetic, neurologic, endocrine, immunologic, and behavior factors. Is integrated with psychologic processes and is sensitive to changes in CNS and endocrine functioning. Stressors such as infection, noise, pain, and malnutrition initiate a stress response that can cause an impact on the endocrine system. So basically what I'm getting from this is if you're stressed in school and you're overly stressed, it can impact not only your endocrine system, but obviously your nervous system and your immune system. For instance, I'm in college. When I'm in school, I get sick so much. I don't know what it is. It's probably because I'm not sleeping and I'm stressed beyond all graciousness or whatever you want to call it, all goodness. And the endocrine system, I gain weight like no other when I'm super stressed. So, I'm probably releasing some cortisol that's just not working in my favor. And nervous system, I'm freaking stressed that my brain is going at 10 million hours. I thought it was funny. Someone was telling me how they were at the gym and they were like, they couldn't even focus on one thing because they were so stressed for exam one coming up. They just kept walking in circles in the gym, like not knowing what to do because they're all over the place. Yeah, that is stress working on the nervous system right there. Okay. Um, Moving on, neuroendocrine regulation. So catecholamines release from chromaffin cells of the adrenal medulla. Epinephrine release adrenergic receptors A1, A2, and beta adrenergic receptors B1, B2, and they mimic direct sympathetic stimulation. The sympathetic system is aroused during stress and releases norepinephrine from the medulla of the adrenal gland to release catecholamines, which is comprised 80% of epinephrine and 20% of norepinephrine. More epinephrine than norepinephrine into the bloodstream. Catecholamines are released from chromaffin cells of the adrenal medulla and cause physiological effects. Epinephrine is released and stimulates adrenergic. So epinephrine stimulates adrenergic A and B adrenergic receptors. Epinephrine binds to these receptors, primarily A adrenergic receptors. These A adrenergic and B adrenergic receptors have effects on many of the organs and tissues. You can review this in your book, but they say it's a little bit specific. So just know this for focus. Seeing what the receptors do may be beneficial. So yeah. Just skip this whole little table thing. They already said it's a little too specific. But just know that epinephrine mostly is what's primarily binding to A adrenergic receptors, and that A and B receptors, when epinephrine binds to them, can cause a physiologic effects on organs and tissues. Okay. Various organ and tissue processes that result because of catecholamine release can happen. However, you want to focus on the cardiovascular, pulmonary, and GI system effects. Primary catecholamines that we are discussing are norepinephrine and epinephrine. But she wanted to include all the different catecholamines in this image. So it looks like if you zoom in a lot here, they also have dopamine and something else, but you don't need to get too into that. Just focus on epinephrine and norepinephrine, okay? Okay. Neuroendocrine regulation. During stress, ACTH activates the adrenal cortex and increases glucocorticoid hormones such as cortisol. These steroids reach all the tissues within the body, penetrating cell membranes, and interact with intracellular glucocorticoid receptors, which increases blood sugar levels. Glucocorticoids regulate various aspects of the central nervous system, such as arousal, cognition, mood, sleep, and metabolism. Cortisol mobilizes substances needed for cellular metabolism and stimulates gluconeogenesis. If you don't know what gluconeogenesis is, it is the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. Um, gluco Cortisol elevates blood sugar levels and inhibits the uptake and oxidation of glucose by the cells. So they want it in the blood rather than in the cells. That cortisol does. And this increases protein metabolism, promotes. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Scratch that. So cortisol elevates blood sugar levels and inhibits the uptake of it from the cells and cortisol also increases protein metabolism, promotes gastric secretion and production, and promotes energy for the body to combat against stress. Glucocorticoids contribute to issues such as metabolic syndrome, in which insulin resistance is promoted and genetic alterations can predispose someone to obesity. Cortisol can be beneficial when a stressor is encountered. Cortisol inhibits or slows the inflammatory effects such as vasodilation, increased capillary permeability, and promotes resolution and tissue repair. Cortisol and catecholamines are thought to decrease cellular immunity while increasing humoral immunity. It's a bit contradictory, but thinking of this idea in relation to immunosuppression may help. Individuals who are immunosuppressed are at increased risk for infection because of their immune systems are weak. Controversially, immunocompromised individuals may have a heightened antibody response. This example is considered when giving a kidney transplant. The person who received the kidney will have a weakened immune system as a result of medications to keep the new organ thriving. The body's defenses, however, will kick in when that new organ is transplanted within the body. The body's natural immune response is to try to destroy that foreign tissue. This is why HLA tissue typing is very important in organ transplants. So going back over like innate and adaptive immunity, because that was in the last chapter. Innate again is first line, like skin and mucosa. Second line is inflammatory and fever and interferons. Adaptive is humoral and antibody. And cellular is cytotoxic T. Okay. Moving on. Oop. Stress-induced hormones. Oh, okay. Back to this. I forgot the main points to summarize. Cortisol activates ACTH, stimulates gluconeogenesis, elevates blood glucose, and is a powerful anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressive agent. B endorphins, found in the brain. They're proteins. They have pain relieving capabilities, are released in response to stress. Inflamed tissue activates endorphin receptors. Hemorrhage increases levels and which inhibit blood pressure, increases and delays compensatory changes. Catecholamines and cortisol are big hormones involved in stress and disease. However, there are many hormones released within the body when stress is encountered. There's probably like 50 bajillion flowing through my body right now. So much stress. So we're only going to really focus and highlight on notable hormones, however. B endorphins are the most powerful endorphin found in the body and constitutes proteins in the brain that have pain relieving capabilities. They are released in response to a stressor and activated in inflammation, tissue inflammation. Bleeding can increase levels of the endorphins, which slows and stops blood pressure increases and delays the compensatory changes when a stressor is experienced or encountered. So B endorphins decrease pain and they're increased in bleeding in stressful situations. They want to keep your blood pressure down. So say maybe think of this like say my dad were to stub his toe and experience pain, B endorphins, they're going to keep his blood pressure down so he doesn't like go into a full-blown heart attack over stubbing his toe. Growth hormone is also called somatotropin and is produced in the anterior pituitary and affects protein, lipid, carbohydrate metabolism. Growth hormone also counters the effect of insulin and enhances immune function. So growth hormone counters the effects of insulin. That looks like it needs to be starred. Chronic stress decreases growth hormone. Although treatments are not part of this course, some people take growth hormones for anti-aging purposes. We don't need to know that. So growth hormone is also called somatotropin. Anterior pituitary affects proteins, lipids, carbohydrate metabolism, counters the effects of insulin, and enhances immune function and chronic stress decreases growth hormone. Prolactin. So prolactin is also produced in the anterior pituitary. It's necessary for lactation and breast development. Prolactin levels in plasma increase as a result of stressful stimuli. So for this, every time when I had my son, and I think any mother in this class too, whenever it doesn't even have to be your own kid. Like I remember when I was in Safeway, even I had mastitis for a bit, and even walking down, I was getting myself some like soup to feel better in Safeway, and there was this baby crying a few aisles down, and I just had let down. And if you don't know what letdown is, it's literally where like you hear a baby cry and you produce loads of milk, like you start dripping. And so basically that hormone I just heard that baby cry, it was a stressor, it was a stimulator that caused me to go, hey, let down milk, because my body in nature knows that when my own baby at home is crying, that means he probably is hungry and I should be letting down milk for him. So funny things your body knows without your mind even thinking about it. body is cool. Okay, so oxytocin is produced by the hypothalamus during childbirth and lactation. It's produced during orgasms of both sexes and reduces anxiety. Um, so yeah, um, cool. Reduces anxiety. Hop on it, right? Okay, never mind. I did not say that. Okay, testosterone is secreted by Leydig cells in the testes. Leydig, Leydig, Leydig. I put a star next to that because I bet you if I was a teacher, I would write what cells in the testes secrete testosterone. It'd probably be like, yeah, I could just see them doing that. Leydig and regulates secondary sex characteristics and libido. If you guys don't know what libido is, it's sex drive. When someone encounters a stressor, testosterone levels decrease, and a body initiates immunosuppressive response. So basically, if your man is stressed, his testosterone is going to decrease, and sex drive is going to decrease with that. All right. Estrogen is released by ovaries and works with oxytocin to exert a calming effect when a stressor is encountered. So for me to remember this, I think testosterone, like when people take steroids and like amp up on testosterone, they're usually angry and mad. And girls, estrogen is normally sweet, calm, and beautiful, a beautiful flower. So I just think they testosterone and estrogen are very opposite. So yeah, girls are sweet, boys are mean and angry. um, Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland and is increased when a stressor is encountered. Melatonin in the body also increases and decreases depending on surrounding light. More melatonin is released during the dark and less in the light. This is why it's thought melatonin is thought to promote sleep. And so basically, I actually have one of those seasonal affective disorder lights. It literally is such a bright light. I'm actually going to turn it on right now. It's literally such a bright light, and it's supposed to have the effects of like sun shining in your eyes, because if you have such increased melatonin, you can get really sleepy. It can cause depression. And that's because in winter time, you're not getting a lot of sunlight in your eyes, and you can have this sleepy overdose of overproduction of melatonin, um, and that's just not good. You gonna become sad. Seasonal affective disorder. Look it up. It's pretty cool. Um, Role of immune system. So the immune system is directly related to increased pro-inflammatory cytokines. So pro-inflammatory cytokine stress is directly related to star that. I could see that being a test question. Small proteins are important for so cytokines are small proteins important for cell communication, inflammation to impaired tissue function, which could hold on, sorry. Let me start this all over again. Immune system stress is directly related to increased pro-inflammatory cytokines. Cytokines are small proteins important for cell communication. Inflammation refers to impaired tissue function, which could potentially damage tissues if prolonged. Stress and negative emotions are thought to be associated with increased pro-inflammatory cytokines. reflecting a link between stress, immune system, immune functions, and disease. The immune system is affected by neuroendocrine factors involved in stress relations. One point to highlight is that stress response decreases T cell cytotoxicity and B cell function. Star that. So T cell and B cell functions are decrease in stress responses, and we need those to fight pathogens if you think about our third line defense. Um, so, um, yeah, stress lowers T and B cell activity, and stress can cause more pro-inflammatory cytokines that equals inflammation. Also, for this one, how I remember this is my mom specifically, anytime she gets stressed, she gets an outbreak and shingles again. So, I just think there has to be something correlating with the stress and her inflammation and poor immune system. I feel like shingles is a perfect example for how stress can really affect all of that. Because it's true. When older people get sick, they get like shingles, and you hear about it for like the next 3 weeks. Okay. Um, Stress, personality, coping, and illness. Stress is not an independent process, but an interdependent process. Everyone reacts to stress differently, depending on unique personality, life experiences. One can combat the effects of stressors through coping, as the process of managing stressful challenges that negatively impact an individual. So adverse consequences of stress may be minimized by coping. That's a big one. For this, I have a sister, April, and she's a total type. I'm a total type A. Many of you know this. I'm a complete type A person. And then April, my sister, is a total type B personality. Like, there's very few of those people in the world, and she is one of them. And she literally can just go along, like literally pick up the day, go minute by minute of the day, and like does not worry about a thing, just everything will happen and be okay. She's totally like that, and I wish I could be like that, but I'm not. And you know what? I feel like she never gets sick. She never has huge issues, and this girl like does not really eat healthy or anything. I mean, sh- gosh, I'm not even going to go into it, but I don't know how she does it, but she's a lot healthier than I am, and I'm pretty sure it's because she has a different personality than me and does not get stressed whatsoever, and she just copes. Something bad. She even got through a divorce without a tear. Like, how? How does that happen? I don't know. Crazy, right? Um, so your text maps out health outcomes for those who encounter stressors. Model A is a healthy individual that responds to stress in two primary ways: to either effectively cope or ineffectively cope. Ineffectively leads to distress and illness. Effective leads to normal steady state. However, um, Model B is an individual with a health issue. So their immune system is already a bit compromised. And so for them, it's a different map. So say they're already sick. If they cope, their disorder or sickness or illness that they're dealing with will stay in a steady state, where if they don't cope, it will exacerbate it. there was this one president, I believe. He didn't even become president, but gosh, what I forgot his name. But his wife had cancer, and he literally cheated during the election with this one girl while his poor wife had cancer, and it just it went way downhill from there. The cancer definitely exacerbated, and um it was very sad for the family. Totally heartbreaking story. And I can only imagine the stress that she had. That is just so sickening that he would do that. But yeah, he didn't become president, thank the Lord. But yeah, that stressful event exacerbated the illness that she was having to fight. Okay. So these are test your knowledge questions. You can go into them further. Um, so an example, oh wait. Uh, Patient experiences stress, activate stress response, release catecholamines. The answer is increased heart rate. An example of adaptive coping response to stress is C, seeking social support. All right. Now we are going to go into learning objectives and what is this? Stress and disease practice book. So describe the physiologic basis of the GAS proposed by Seeley. Seeley proposed that stressors could result in adrenal enlargement, immune alterations, and GI tract manifestations. Discuss the components of the physiologic stress and stages of the GAS response. Physiologic stress represents a wide range of physiologic responses that occurs in direct effect of the stressor, causing an upset in the homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's compensation to minor changes in needs or environment. A stressor is a factor that creates significant change on the body. Severe or prolonged stress can cause dysfunction, increased wear or tear on tissues, and exhaustion of resources. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the reactions. The alarm reaction is the perception of stressor physically or mentally. Pupils dilate. Oh, sorry, I was making sure my microphone didn't get turned off. Fight or flight response is initiated, and hormone levels rise. May result in disease or death if prolonged or stress is severe enough. Resistance is stabilization. Hormones return normal parasympathetic nervous system activity. Very few noticeable physical signs or symptoms occur right now compared to with the alarm stage. Adaptation to stressors occur or a person advances to exhaustion. So resistance means that you're coping, you're adapting, and you're resisting the stress. So you become back to normal and you adapt. Exhaustion, however, is if you don't cope well and you have decreased energy levels, decrease adaptation, and it could possibly lead to death. And can occur when energy for adaptation has been exhausted. Discuss the neuroendocrine stress response from initiation by recognition of a stressor through resolution by exhaustion or adaptation. So let's just roll into it. Hypothalamus is the central connection between the nervous and endocrine system. It regulates the function of sympathetic and parasympathetic branches of the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system stimulates the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine and norepinephrine, and could cause a flight or fight response. Okay. So I guess that's the neuroendocrine response. Okay. List the effects of cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine on an individual under stress. So the immediate response. So epinephrine has immediate response and prepares the body for quick action. Blood flow shifts from the skin and digestive tract to the muscles. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, you become more alert. Targets the cardiovascular system to increase cardiac output, dilate blood vessels, increase pro-inflammatory cytokines. Norepinephrine in the immediate response shifts blood flow away from areas where it might not be so crucial, like the skin, and towards more essential areas at the time, like the muscles, so you can flee the stressful scene at once. In a delayed response, physiological effects of cortisol, increased blood glucose levels, help to maintain fluid balance and blood pressure, potentiates catecholamine action on the blood vessel, inhibits inflammatory response, helps regulate some body functions that aren't crucial in the moment, like reproductive drive, immunity, digestion, and growth. Cortisol is for delayed, and norepinephrine and epinephrine are immediate. Identify the hormones other than epinephrine and cortisol affected by physiologic response to a stressor. So beta endorphins are synthesized by the pituitary gland in response to a physiologic stressor such as pain. They function in the central and peripheral nervous system to relieve pain when they are bound to opioid receptors. Pretty sure that was different. It was a different receptor in the thing. Yeah, so it binds to receptor and lowers pain, and it also decreases increase in blood pressure. Growth hormone. Stress in Stress in young children can slow the growth hormone or even stop growth hormone. So if a child is stressed severely, it can slow or stop the growth hormone. Both brain and development and physical growth and growth hormone is also called somatotropin. Prolonged exposure to cortisol released during stress response can cause long-term damage to the developing brain. So if you're extremely stressed and you're not producing growth hormone, you can have child could have brain developing issues, or even stop or slow their growth patterns. Not good. Prolactin is milk production increase with stress. Oxytocin is not just a love or cuddle hormone, it's a powerful anti-stress hormone that lowers cortisol, blood pressure, and more. Um, Oxytocin is produced by the hypothalamus, and it's also released in orgasms and reduces anxiety. Sex hormones affects mood and lowers libido. Describe the known mechanisms of the interaction between the neuroendocrine and immune responses to stress. So stress is directly related to pro-inflammatory cytokines, so protein messengers, and those can increase inflammation and stress response, decrease T cell cytotoxicity, and B cell function. Applying the understanding of stress response to, so number 7, stress response to clinical or personal situation by describing um, the situation and response and manifestations observed or experienced. So for me, a personal experience was I was taking patho with Miss Meacham one time, and so I have OCD, if y'all don't know. And so taking that class was awful for me. Um, just I everything I wanted organized, and it couldn't be organized, and it was definitely all over the place, and it was very unpredictable. And I had abnormal amounts of anxiety, and I swear I got PTSD after that class. And I took that class in fall, and that whole um winter break afterwards, that whole month I was like very, very sick. I think it was just freaking too much stress for my body. I couldn't handle it. Couldn't even sleep well. Um, so that definitely had an effect on my immune system. Discuss the factors that mediate an individual's ability to cope with stressors. Nature, intensity, and duration of stressor affects the abilities to cope. Personality characteristics, different experiences, psychosocial, physical health play an active role too. Um, I don't cope well. Like I said, my sister's a good coper. However, I got my mama's genes where we like to stress about our own shadow. Like, we just overdo everything. So, um, yeah. Everyone's different. People just have different abilities and what they can handle and what they can't. Um, Describe the importance and functions in T helper 1 and T helper 2 and associated cytokines. So T helper 1 cells tend to generate responses against intracellular parasites and bacteria and viruses. T helper 2 produce immune responses against helminths and extracellular parasites. Is that right? I'm not sure if that one's right, y'all. Let me search that. I don't know where I got that. Searching importance of TH1 and TH2 and cytokines. Mm-hmm. Okay. The difference between them, TH1, oh, okay. Well, definitely search that one because I don't think that's right for me. I definitely got that from Wikipedia. Quizlet. Ah, goodness. Well, search that one, y'all. I will, when I find out the answer, I'll post that in the description. Because that doesn't seem so correct with what we're talking about. Okay. See you guys in the next chapter.